Hi, and welcome to the Hadassah Collective Podcast. I'm your host, Claire Marrinan. The Hadassah Collective is a unique, wellness-centered community created in and inspired by India, the birthplace of holistic health disciplines. The Hadassah Collective Podcast brings together a carefully curated selection of my most trusted and inspiring innovators from every area of the health and wellness space. I invite my guests to freely share their gifts, their wisdom, their journeys, and their diverse points of view, discussing a vast range of topics including shutdown and self-isolation strategies, integrated diet and fitness, yogic science, modern mental health, and holistic lifestyle, all to inspire you with relatable tools to help you consciously customize, support, and expand your life. In today's episode, I'm joined by Khushbu Thadani. Khushbu is a nutritionist and life coach. Khushbu went through her own personal health and wellness transformation in her late teens and early 20s, which led her to become a trained nutritionist. Throughout this process, she realized the power of mindset and later became a life coach. Today, she guides her clients and creates a space for internal and external transformation. In today's episode, she shares her tips and tricks with us. Hi Khushbu, welcome to the Hadassah Collective. Today we have Khushbu Thadani, who is the founder of Kweigh, a nutritionist and life coach with us today. So thank you for joining me, Khushbu.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
I'm very much looking forward to it as well. So let's get right into it. We can start with just telling me a little bit about yourself and what you do, and also paint a little picture of where you are at and how you've been spending this quarantine time and moving out of this quarantine time.
Yeah, so I'm a nutritionist and life coach, and like you said, founder of my wellness consulting business, Kweigh. And essentially, I help clients manage their diets, lifestyle, and create habits so that they're able to thrive from the inside out by aligning their mind and body. And right now, I'm currently in the UK, in London, and I spent the first bit of lockdown, the first 4 months in India, and I was able to come out here. And it's been an interesting transition because the situation in both countries are so different. And in Bombay, it was a lot more rigid. I think in 3 months, I left the house for a total of 90 minutes. Whereas in London, you are taking your precautions, but still stepping out on a regular basis. So it's been interesting to see, like, coming back, you're transitioning back to real life that is not just confined to your four walls.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. It's been great that you were able to get out and get into a different environment. And it's interesting how things are unfolding and opening up in London and sort of getting back to normal. I don't think that we can call it normal yet, but it's so good for you that you're able to get out and about and interact with people, because I think that that's still what's missing a little bit in Bombay, sadly. But I think it's also opening up and the situation is improving. But one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, you have a lot of consulting clients and you've been doing Zoom consulting with them. And what is the sort of feeling throughout the shutdown and now moving out of it? What is the collective energy that you've been feeling with your clients and also personally?
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting because I think the first month or so, everyone was, and I think that can apply to the whole world. Everybody was kind of in a state of frenzy because we've never experienced this kind of situation. And so it was almost just adjusting to the new norm. And I could notice there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear and stress. And I think by month 2, people understanding that, okay, this is not going anywhere anytime soon, and to really make the most of it. And even like with work, like in terms of how I saw my business go, the first month, it did slow down. And I think at that point, people didn't really have the mental bandwidth to commit to taking care of themselves. But I think by month 2, then you could see the changes because I had such an influx of new clients. And the interesting thing was the kinds of clients that were approaching me, that in the past, it was more nutrition focused, whereas now a lot of it is more anxiety focused and mental health focused, which is just amazing because people are realizing how impactful and how powerful our minds are when we start to apply it in the right direction.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it has been a really interesting time to have that shift in perspective as well, and to have that downtime to be able to sort of look at these things and, just take more care of your mental health. So I do think it is a really interesting time for people to reassess that and sort of I think as well, coming out of this is going to be a very interesting time in terms of mental health, because we have all sort of come through this period of past the 21-day marker, past the 40-day marker of sort of detoxing, I think, from that, that energy of that reciprocal energy of being around people. And so I think it's going to be really important to navigate out of that very gradually, because our nervous systems are just not used to handling so much of an influx of other people's energy. So can you speak to that a little bit, and if you notice that in your clients and in yourself?
Oh, that's such an interesting point that you brought up, and I'm so happy you did, because I've noticed, because after like a couple of months of spending time on your own, you are, like you said, you're detoxing your energy, whether it's intentional or not. And one thing I personally noticed is when after spending 3 months primarily on my own, is that with whether or not we're realizing it, like you rightly said, we are detoxing our energy. And so when we start to interact with people in real life, or we start to bring in all things we used to do, you realize how sensitive your energy is. And because we were repeatedly doing certain things or hanging out with certain people or having certain conversations, we almost numbed ourselves to it. And so we didn't realize how impactful it was in terms of draining our energy. And so the minute you interact with that situation or that person or that conversation again, now, because our energy is so sensitive, you're not going to be able to handle it the way you once used to. And the first time I hung out with a group of people, I came back home and I was just exhausted. It was a really nice afternoon, but you forget what it's like to engage in conversation in such a large number, and it takes a lot out of you. And I think it's slowly now transitioning back into things that we haven't done in the last 3 months.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I had very similar experience as well. It was sort of like, I was very much looking forward to seeing people. And then when I did spend time with people, had a great time. It's, everything's fine. But it was just like when I came home, I realized like, wow, that actually was a lot, So I think
it's a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, it's a lot. I'm back now into my little isolation. But no, I mean, so I think that's kind of just teaching us that balance, is that, and to be aware of that. And I think it's made us more sensitive to that, which can only be a good thing, actually.
Yeah, and also just to slow down. Like, I was just reflecting that normally when I come, because I usually spend like 3 months in London during the summer, and normally my trips to London are very hustle and bustle. Like every hour you're doing something and you're just always on the go. But this trip, obviously, it's been very different, that there's been a lot of downtime, spending more time at home, and just, and I gotta say, I'm actually really enjoying the slower pace of life. Like I don't know if I even want to go back to that fast way of constantly being busy.
Yeah. I think it's going to give everybody sort of new priorities, and we just have so much more control of what we decide to bring back into our lives. And I think if we can hold that kind of awareness and like navigate that space in a really healthy way, then I think that it's really, we've taken something good out of this. But
the cool thing is that now coming out of lockdown, it's almost like we all have been gifted a clean slate. And now how we fill that slate, it boils down to us. Yeah. And some people are going to stick with their old ways, which again, each to their own. Yeah. But I really hope that everyone sticks with practices, activities, people, and whatever it is that actually make you feel good from the inside out.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your path, how you started on this journey as a nutritionist and then moving into this space of a life coach.
Yeah, so my career has always been a reflection of my own personal journey with well-being. Mm-hmm. So long story short, I grew up as an obese child, hit the scales about 90 kilos. And then at the age of 16, I realized I didn't want to spend a life feeling uncomfortable in my skin. Mm-hmm. And so after, engaging in a few quick fix diets, I finally realized that I have to, stick to a diet that was sustainable. So slowly cleaned up my diet, started exercising, and over about 2.5 years, went to lose about 75 pounds. Yeah. And the amazing thing is with change and transformation is the momentum, the power of momentum. And as I saw how my body was physically changing, it inspired and motivated me to keep going. And then I went into the mental space and realized, okay, how much more can I change if I change my mindset and my thoughts? And they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And, I think when I had that realization, I started, on Instagram being bombarded with coaches and then references to different podcasts or different books. Then, then I learned about the wonderful world of manifestation, the law of attraction, and light bulbs just went out in my head. And, when you start to apply these things in small manners and you see how much better your life becomes and how for a long time we settle with mediocrity, then I realized that, okay, I can't just be a weight loss coach. I need, people need to understand how powerful their minds are. And so then I went on to get certified as a life coach as well. And the cool thing is that they both go hand in hand together. Yeah. Because mindset is so important with fat loss, but also the way we eat affects how we feel, and how we feel impacts what we attract into our life.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that it really has is a full circle really for you, because that sort of feeds so much into your mindset for me personally anyway, as to how I eat and how I treat my body is a direct reflection of how I'm feeling, how I'm mentally feeling 100%. As well. And so I think that the two definitely go hand in hand. And so tell me a little bit about your early life, growing up, where you grew up and where you spent your childhood years and what that looked like for you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Nigeria. I lived there for 14 years, and I loved it. Despite growing up as an obese child, I know a lot of people, when they look back, they have horror stories of being bullied or whatever. But fortunately, I've always been blessed with the best group of friends. Grew up as a very happy childhood. Then I moved to the UK to come to boarding school for high school, which was amazing, and that's also coincided when I started my wellness journey. And then now for the last 10 years. Living in Bombay. And it's funny because people often expect, when they ask me what was the move like from London, they expect some crazy stories about how awful Bombay is. But it's been an amazing 10 years. Obviously, I think anyone who's lived in Bombay can vouch for the fact that there's small things that drive us crazy. But I feel like Bombay is for me at least, it's been very conducive for the kind of work I do. And because the awareness in healthy living is only increasing, and it's been cool to watch how that's constantly growing and being part of it too, and being in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. In the last 6 years that I've lived in Bombay, I don't know if this year counts actually, but 6 years ago I moved to Bombay, and it's really interesting to see the evolution of the wellness industry and 100%. Spiritual industry as well in Bombay. And it's really interesting, the blend of, because India is the home of holistic wellness, and to see the blend of these ancient techniques with newer techniques, and people are really coming out, like with yourself, coming out with really interesting offerings. And so it's beautiful to see that evolution. And so...
Yeah, and like you said... Yes, sorry. No, what I was saying is that, a lot of times people think that it's either you're going through, the idea that, okay, you have your Western practices or you have your Eastern practices, such as Ayurveda, yoga. But the amazing thing is I think we've reached a point where we have seen that they can coincide and coexist.
Yeah.
That, yes, we are, constantly, there's so much newness being launched in the wellness space, but we can still hold on to olden practices which still serve such a huge purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think definitely that's evolved as well from the nutritional side of things and fitness side of things, and now also into this manifestation space, where it isn't just a very sort of abstract spiritual concept of manifestation or even the law of attraction and things like that, but there is actually now neuroscience that is backing this up and helping us with new techniques and evolve those techniques as well, to be able to assist us mentally to clear those sort of blocks and things like that. And so the manifestation space is even now not so much of just a woo-woo space. It's becoming
woo-woo concept.
Exactly. So that's really the blend of that is very interesting as well.
I think also Well, I think a lot of times people shy, especially our younger generation, we shy away from spirituality because of the way it's been portrayed in the past. And I think when you just break it up into digestible content and realize that it's so relevant to each one of us, and it's just about understanding it in a language that makes sense, and also realizing that there's a lot of science that comes with spirituality. So like you rightly said, that like now we're in a space where there's law of attraction manifestation is getting its limelight because there's also neuroscience that backs up how powerful it actually is. And it's not just this crazy concept about just putting out energy and it's going to come back to you, but why it's happening. And when you understand the why, you are that much more driven to actually apply it into your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so along the path, have you faced any rock bottoms or any difficult moments? And how has this shaped your path? And also, what techniques and practices have you used to navigate through those difficult times?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to like rock bottoms, I wouldn't say there's been any rock bottoms per se, but I think I've reached a lot of ruts and lull periods where it's almost like, okay, you've conquered one challenge and then you're doing it, but then it becomes so easy, it doesn't really feel like you're exerting your mind, and then that boredom kicks in. And I think with each step, that's what's pushed me to elevate my business in some way, or whether that's hiring a coach or pivoting into a new direction or becoming certified in another area. And I think it's just about realizing that when we do face these uncomfortable moments, and this also applies to like this lockdown situation, is that don't shy away from it, but realize it's only because you are ready for growth. And there's something, if you keep staying stuck and repeating the same ways you think, act, and feel on a daily basis, that dissatisfaction is only going to get more and more. And if you really want to improve the quality of your life, your business, your well-being, whatever it is, something needs to change. And now when I do face these kind of moments, I actually embrace them. I'm like, okay, it sucks, this feeling, but I know something better is on the other side. But now what can I do to get to the other side?
Yeah. And do you have any specific practices that have supported you on your journey, that have helped you out of those moments? Like when you find yourself in the space of a lull in your life, what are the sort of steps that you take to get yourself out of it?
So one of the most empowering things that, I've had that realization, and I really hope a lot of people do, is we have all the answers within us, but it's just that we're not paying attention. And so a lot of mindfulness techniques, which I apply daily, because I feel like you can't just wait for that uncomfortable moment to creep up. You have to be working on yourself on a regular basis so that you never reach a rock bottom. And so for me, the three things which I swear by and do daily is meditation. And some days that's 30 minutes, some days that's 5 minutes, whatever it is, but just keeping that momentum going. Daily gratitude, and that's something which I swear by, and also journaling. For me, I get a lot of self-reflection and a lot of insight when I just pen down my thoughts. And I feel like our mind magnifies a lot of our issues, but when you just unbottle it, not only do you feel lighter, but you gain a new perspective. And so your approach to your situation comes from a place of empowerment as opposed to fear.
Yeah, amazing. 100% agree with that. I'm also an avid journaler. I think that it's great to be able to just to release those thoughts onto the page, and they suddenly seem manageable after that, and it sort of stops you in your tracks. So especially if you're mulling over something and constantly thinking about something, it's really great to be able to put it down on paper and to be able to release it from your body and your mind, and to sort
it's such a release.
It's amazing. So I think that that's great as well. And what do you think your biggest successes in life have been, and what did you learn from those experiences?
I think one of my biggest successes is being able to turn issues in my life that held me back for so long, whether it's my weight or, facing anxiety at some stage, or, just feeling dissatisfied with life, and being able to turn it as a way of helping others transform their life. And, it's given me so much insight that every tough moment that I've experienced, even let's say in 2008 when I lost my dad, that was a tough moment for me as well. And, the kind of realization, insight, and what I gained from every one of those negative situations, using it to help others overcome whatever they're facing. And I think when I look back, that's probably something I'm most proud about. That I didn't just stay stuck in that negativity, but I used it in to benefit others.
Yeah, and to propel yourself forward and move forward through those things. So that's really amazing. I just wanted to ask a quick question that's not in our questions actually, but I think it'd be interesting for people who have children and they are wanting to instill this attitude of positivity and healthy lifestyle into their children. Maybe they formed some unhealthy habits or they're concerned about their weight, but it's really difficult to navigate as a parent, right? So are there some tips that you could give parents out there that want to just guide their children to a more healthy lifestyle?
So the number one thing which I would say is be the example you wish to be for your kids. And so as much as we could like to because kids model behavior, whether or not we are conscious about it. And so you can tell them eat their broccoli, but if you're sitting at dinner and they see you eating broccoli, suddenly that broccoli becomes a lot more appealing than the burger, which you don't touch, because that's all they know. Because we take everything our authority figures are doing as right, because we don't at that age you don't have that capacity to process what is going on. And also Another practice which I think every parent should actually do is every night or at the start of every day, just sit with your kid and just say, what are 3 things you are grateful for? And it becomes such a beautiful habit. And what you're doing in the process is you are wiring their brain to seek out abundance in their life. And if you can inculcate this into their head at a young age, when they're older, can you imagine how beneficial that abundance mindset is going to be for them? Whereas for a lot of us, we have to wait till we're in our 20s, 30s, 40s to rewire our brain and to go from a place of scarcity and lack into consciously now thinking from a place of abundance.
Yeah. So instilling that in them from a really young age is such positive parenting, I think. And
also the final thing I'll also say is being mindful of your language around kids, because a lot of times parents, we all do it. We throw out statements out of innocence because that's what we've been grown up and taught, but we don't realize how impactful our words are. So I'll give you an example is even telling a boy who's crying, be a big boy. It's almost, in doing so, you invalidate their feelings. And as they grow up, they become less emotional because that's what they've been told, you know? Or telling a girl that, you look, go wear a dress, you look pretty. It's almost, it's these little statements where it's coming from the best of places, because which parent doesn't want the best for their kids? But also realizing that your words are shaping your kids, so choose them mindfully.
Yeah, absolutely. And so who have your major influences and sources of inspiration or mentors been in your life? I mean, they can either be public figures or celebrities or people in your own personal life.
So right now, the cool thing is I think we're living in a generation where we have so much access to knowledge and to mentors and just influential people who can motivate and inspire us. And right now, especially during this lockdown period, the one person who's really I've just been so in awe of and constantly learning from is Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yes.
Because he ties in spirituality and neuroscience. And I just think it's been so mind-blowing to learn from him. Yeah. So he's one person. And I know you're familiar with Esther and Jerry Hicks, Abraham Hicks.
Yeah.
That's... And also, I listen to a lot of podcasts. So Jay Shetty's podcast.
Yeah.
As cliche as it sounds, Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul Sunday, I just can't get enough. And I think, getting different perspectives, because at the end of the day, all the messages are pretty much in line with one another, but it's just understanding it from different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes hearing it in a different languaging or, from a different perspective, from a more scientific perspective, for some people will click with some people, or for another person, the more sort of spiritual, heart-centered, that will click for some people. So I think that it's, and for ourselves as well in different parts of our times in our lives as well. I've definitely, from all of those people that you've listed, I've learned from, especially Joe Dispenza. I think that his work is just incredible. And I do a lot of his meditations actually as well. So he's definitely one. His books are really, really interesting. And so apart from those, what other resources would you recommend to our listeners?
I would say, because a lot of time, one thing which I've noticed, even with my clients, and we get stuck in this idea that, okay, I don't enjoy reading, but there's so many other ways to consume knowledge. And
Absolutely.
so, again, if you don't enjoy reading books, which for me, I love, but if you don't, then go onto YouTube and just type in whatever you're interested in. And even if you have 10 minutes, you'll find a 10-minute video.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, to learn something new, you have to spend hours every day. And, what I do sometimes is if I'm facing an issue in my life, I just literally go onto YouTube and search, affirmations, hypothetically affirmations for career or whatever it is. Yeah. And just watching some kind of clip to motivate me.
Yeah.
Another guy who I watch a lot of is Aaron Dowdy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No,
I watch him on YouTube. And Sahara Rose. These are two more. And in terms of books, one book which I just love, again, by Dr. Joe Dispenza, was Break Up the Habit of Being You. Mm-hmm. That is something which I think no matter what space of, whether you're more spiritual based, more science based, or a bit of both, I think it's something which just resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that as a good starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And tell me a little bit more about Kweigh and your life coaching sessions. What can we expect from a session with Khushbu?
Yeah, so my life coaching sessions are for a minimum of 6 weeks, because I truly believe that you have to give yourself that time to see the differences. It's not like a one-time quick fix. And with my life coaching sessions, it's based on energy work and manifestation, but also tying in the neuroscience part of it. So understanding, just firstly getting that foundation, understanding how your thoughts, your subconscious beliefs are shaping your reality. And then applying it into your life and saying, okay, what are my limiting beliefs that have been holding me back for all these years? Yeah. And only once we understand that, then can we start to gain clarity about what we want in our life. Because unless we clear out the toxic negative energy and belief systems which have been holding us back for all these years, then can we start to make room for newness in our life and to actually manifest and create the reality that we want for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so each week builds on each other, and it's beautiful because, as a coach, one thing that gives me so much joy is watching people change their mindsets in such a short span of time. Because, when it comes to ourselves, we are our harshest critic. And so it's almost like we don't allow ourselves to see our transformation unless something big happens. But watching even small incremental changes, it's just mind-blowing how quickly our brains can adapt. And as a result, our lives start to reflect those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sounds fantastic. And so coming back to the present, what does your daily routine look like right now in London?
So the amazing thing about what I do is it's a very flexible life. So I wouldn't say there's every day looks the same, but every day without fail starts, because I'm also someone who likes structure, so I make sure that I do carve in some kind of routine. So every day without fail starts with hot water and apple cider vinegar, meditation and gratitude and journaling. And then after that, I try to get a workout in, and it all depends on how my day is structured in terms of my clients. Some days I have calls lined up one after another, and so I'll just spend a day at home just on back-to-back calls. Other times it could be writing out client plans or doing podcast interviews with someone like you, or even right now I'm brainstorming and working on a new course that I'm creating. It's still in the pipeline, so I haven't really carved out the nitty-gritty, but it's been quite exciting because after seeing how people's interests have pivoted and their take on well-being and how it's more mindset focused, trying to now create a course that tailors these new needs.
Yeah, fantastic. Can't wait to hear about your new course. And,
yes.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back when you're ready to launch that one. And what is your feeling at the moment of how we're moving out of this? Are there any sort of emotions or triggers that are coming up for you on how we're moving through this time and the future, or what is coming up for you right now?
I think a lot of statements I heard at the start of lockdown was coronavirus is making me so anxious, or coronavirus is making me so stressed out. And some people might not like me for saying this, but coronavirus didn't make you any of those. It was just a trigger and brought out these emotions which you've been harboring for so long. And what I would really say is that unless we address these uncomfortable feelings, don't expect them to magically go away once the lockdown or quarantine is over. because you're still going to be facing them, but you're just going to have a lot of other stuff to also deal with, such as the social aspect. And that's something which, I actually had a conversation with a client the other day, is look at this period as your foundation period. Right now, we have this gift to build such a strong foundation with our well-being. So when life does go back to normal, our health is already taken care of. We already have these amazing practices in play. Yeah. And we're just building on that, as opposed to waiting for the lockdown to be lifted before we allow ourselves to take care of our health and mindset.
Yeah, incredible. I think that's great advice. And everyone is sort of dying to get back to the new normal.
I know.
I really hate that phrase. I think I'm going to eliminate it from the dictionary.
The new norm.
But everybody's rushing back to, or we have been for months actually, wanting to get back to normal, which I think is really natural. But what parts of the lockdown that created space for you to establish new practices in your life, and what brought you joy, and what will you be taking out of this space that you don't want to return back to the old ways?
Yeah, one thing which is so ironic is, and I'm talking now more in the beginning parts of lockdown, because right now it is a little more like social, so I am luckily getting human connection.
Yeah.
But I feel like after the first 3 months of just literally not leaving my flat in Bombay, is I noticed my friendships and relationships were, despite the lack of human connection, they were stronger than ever. And I feel like we had time to give that personalized attention to people and really engage. Whereas I feel like before lockdown started, how often did we actually sit on a call with a friend who we haven't spoken to in months and give that person your 1 hour? We all have other things to be doing on a regular basis. And it was just so nice. I'm really grateful that after lockdown, my friendships and relationships are just stronger than ever. And another thing, getting back into the kitchen, which has been really fun, experimenting with new recipes, which I'm somebody who gets in a rut with my meals, so I can eat the same thing for days on end. But because we had so much time, I decided, let's revamp that a bit. Yeah. Changing up my workouts. I had this huge aversion to at-home workouts because I just preferred the gym environment. But it's almost like it forces you to be creative. And I've really embraced these at-home workouts. These little things which, we just decide we don't like it because we have so much choice. But when you're forced to go back to the basics, you have to find ways to carve out joy into your life, regardless of the external situation. And I just think that's one thing which I would say I'm really proud of, is being able to use this lockdown to my advantage, as opposed to finding reasons to crib about it and say that it's been a miserable experience. Because I truly, when I look back, I most of it, I'd say 90% was only positive.
Yeah. And I think, on some level, nearly everyone that I've spoken to sees the benefit in this and sees the positive side of this. Obviously, there is a lot of suffering and there's a lot of hardship. I don't think anyone has not been impacted in at least some way.
No, for sure.
But I think that a lot of people that I have been speaking to, more the attitude is like, wow, I needed this. I needed this space. I needed this pause, and has been a really great time for reflection. So, I think that's really encouraging.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, I echo your thoughts. And that's something which, the self-reflection part is something which I'm going to make sure that it continues to be a daily practice, as opposed to just doing it when I have time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's no longer a nicety, it's now a necessity. It's really important.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so thank you so much for being with us. Now, where can our listeners find
Thank you for having me. It's always so nice to chat.
Yeah, 100%. I always love having you on. Where can our listeners find you, find out more information about your work and your courses and your coaching?
Yeah. So, to find out more information about my different offerings, you can visit my website, kthadani.com. But I hang out more on Instagram. I usually post daily stories and really love engaging with you guys. And my Instagram handle is at Khushbu.Kweigh. For the spelling, I'm sure Claire will post it in the show notes, so you can just have a look.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to share? I always love your wealth of knowledge and your perspective on different things. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that I haven't asked?
So just on a final note, what I would just, tell, because, again, I just share that it was been a really positive experience for me, but I really do empathize for people who are just not in the greatest spaces right now, and realize that every day is a clean slate, and you get to decide how you want to walk out of this lockdown. And even if the last 4 months wasn't the best, today's a new day, or whenever you listen to this. And if you are somebody who is locked down alone, I really understand that it can be a very lonely time. But just remember, being alone doesn't mean you have to be lonely. And so, start reaching out, engaging, and reaching out to friends, whether that's or watching people on YouTube or listening to a podcast, whatever it is. But just doing something where you don't feel alone. I think sometimes when our minds are too idle, which is so common right now, that's when we start to go into this vortex of negativity. Yeah. And you just realize that it's a choice. You can pull yourself out of it at any moment.
Yeah, what a beautiful insight to end on. Thank you so much, Khushbu. I really appreciate your time and having you on.
Loved being on, loved chatting.
Thank you.
And have the best time in Thailand, and we will connect super soon.
Thank you. I'll see you back in Bombay at some time in the near future.
Exactly. Let's see when, but yes, see you soon in Bombay. But lots of love and big hugs.
You too, darling. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and you got some things to take away from our amazing guests' insight. If you did enjoy this episode, please subscribe and also leave us a review. And for more information on the Hadassah Collective, you can visit our Instagram page at Hadassah Collective. I hope you'll join me again for our next episode at the same time next week. And until then, have a wonderful week.